Yeah, so we've talked about communication, which is a big topic, but communicating really tough decisions. What's the best way to go about that? I think to begin with, the first thing is to understand why a decision has been taken. If you're a middle manager and you're going to go in and chat to your team leader, your team members, you're going to understand why this decision was made. You may not agree with it completely, by the way, but at least you understand there was a rationale that management had, and try and understand that, and then help to explain that rationale. A particular, I suppose, sore point is financials, Gladys. That's one that can be one of the most difficult parts of the landscape for people to talk through, especially around increments aren't high enough, or salaries aren't high enough. Do you want to reflect on that for a moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes there are difficult decisions, sometimes there are strategic decisions. Say, for instance, if you look at the increments, always year-end is a challenge for us, right? So in spite of the best policies that we have, that you are not supposed to share the increments and things like that, people always get to know. And sometimes they might find that, we have a slab, we say like, all 4 raters will get X percentage, but they might find that a friend or a colleague has got a higher percentage. Now, we always sort of explain, why someone is getting a higher percentage before we even, finalize the increments. One of the biggest reasons why people will get different increment percentages in spite of getting the same rating is that we do salary normalization. So sometimes people might have joined at a
very low rate
pay package, and they might not even be in the minimum end of the range, and therefore, around appraisals, around yearly increments, we try and sort of normalize people's pay. So it's sort of explaining that in advance to your people, so that they are aware that if they find out that someone else might have got a higher percentage, that it's because that their salary might have been.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think if I was the manager, I would probably start by saying, the company have agreed to an 8% or 9% increment this year. That's going to add 40 lakhs a month to the labour bill. That's the kind of position that we're in. People at the 4 rating will get 8%, but there will be a few exceptions to that because of people's different circumstances, where they come from and what they've done. But generally, that's what they're going to get. And just, say to people, to be balanced about their view of the increment. Don't go looking for the one person that's got 13% and ignore the bunch of people that only got 5%, which is our natural tendency is to look at the person who got the big increment. And we won't talk about the people who got a much lower increment than me. So I think if I was a manager, I would deal with those, the big picture. There will be a few exceptions for good reason, as you said, Ladas. And then just reflect with employees that there'll always be somebody out there that you could find who's higher in any level, ourselves included. So I think they're the kind of messages that would help on that salary point in particular.
And in my team, especially, the other aspect that we sort of always have a challenge with is contractors that we hire. Say, it is a strategic decision that sometimes, for a short-term secondary tech stack projects that we might not have long-term employees hired. So we will hire direct contractors. The hiring process is the same, whether you're an FTE or a contractor. But however, when the project gets over, we will let go of the contractors. So that doesn't mean that, we are downsizing or we are making people redundant, or because the projects are not there, or the projects got over and everyone's being let go. So not to create that sense of panic, it's to explain very clearly, sort of, again, communication plays a key role, and, sort of giving them the context and the background and why that has happened, I think will be very, very helpful. And the last bit that I have is sometimes managers are privy to a lot of, rates that we charge our clients and things like that. I think it is to be sensible what you can reveal to your team and, what information that you need to withhold, because, often or sometimes we find that if the person in the team knows what we are charging to the client, that person, he or she might not be getting, for their level, they might be getting still a reasonable pay, but they might look at what we are charging the client and might think that, like, no, oh, I'm only getting so much, but I'm making so much money, right? So, but they don't take into consideration all the other overheads that we have, the bench that we carry, the investments that we make in terms of L&D and other HR benefits and activities. So I think it is sometimes sort of differentiating between what you can share and what you cannot share and what you need to withhold. I think managers should be aware
Judicious
and
about that.
judicious about
I think some employees don't have the maturity to understand that their salary is really only a small part of a very large cost base. Those laptops, licenses, capital expenditure, HR departments have to be paid for, training has to be paid for. At the end of the day, as a business, we'll make 15% gross margin. It's not massive. So yes, my salary might be £800, but they're charging the client £2,000.
Yeah.
Should I be getting more of that? Probably not, because there are a whole raft of costs that come with running any business. But you're right, some employees are just not mature enough to understand that, I guess. And so the manager has to be careful about what he or she is revealing, or if it does get out or does become known, then you have to take the time to explain all that, and maybe in some detail too, to bring that home. So that's a good point.